So I'm Simon Carding. I work at the Quadram Institute. I'm also a UEA employee, so hence the two titles I have. So welcome to Quadram. So if it's your first visit, this is a relatively new institution. We've only been here since April. And I think if you came through the front door, you'll see that we have the NHS below, research labs above. So this is a new experiment for research funding and research institutes in the UK. So we are government funded principally. We are not working for any biopharmaceutical company. We are pretty much entirely government funded to do research on gut microbes, food and health. So ME is a sort of extension of what we're doing. And most of our research is funded by Invest in ME research, which you'll hear more about as we go through presentations. So the purpose of this event is to publicize a very exciting and innovating trial that we're undertaking here at the Quadram as an intervention to hopefully treat ME. So there'll be lots of information that we presented. I'm going to give an overview and describe the trial in its broad detail, and then we'll have presentations that relate to more specific activities and programs within the trial itself. So just to get you used to the click pad, this is the starter question. So arm yourself with your clicker pad. And so the first question is, from which end do you peel a banana? Number 1 is at the top, number 2 is at the bottom. Vote now. 50, okay. There we go. 88% of you voted from the top, 12% from the bottom. So why is that interesting? So we generally peel a banana from the top, but monkeys peel it from the bottom. So the 12% of you that said from the bottom, make your own conclusions. Okay, so you all know how to use the devices. That's good. So here's the first serious question. Do you suffer from ME? 1, yes. 2, no. 3, maybe. So we have 54. Is anybody else waiting to respond? Okay. So 43% yes, 54% no, 4% maybe. Okay. So then hopefully the majority of you in here will actually, what we're going to talk about today will be of direct relevance to you. So next question, how long have you had or suffered from ME? 1 less than 2 years, 2 more than 2 years. So we haven't got anything showing up for that one. Okay. Oh, everyone, sorry, missed it. Yeah, it's black. Oh. Okay, thank you for that. So a little bit of introduction about the cause, what ME is and the causes and why we're undertaking the trial. So it's fair to say that we still do not yet have a clear idea about what the cause of ME is here. The diagram on the slide illustrates some of the more common, I think, hypotheses as to explain what ME is. So immune dysregulation, mitochondrial impairment as it relates to energy, production, utilization, intestinal dysbiosis, that means gut problems, and viral infection. And so one of the more common hypotheses is that maybe it is an infectious disease. And this relates back to more than 80 years ago when the first, if you like, outbreak of ME occurred in Los Angeles. It was originally misdiagnosed as polio because the symptomology resembled polio, but that was later discarded. And then through subsequent outbreaks, it became to resemble more and more like an infectious disease, so rapidly spread in individuals living in close proximity to each other, so in hospitals, and also in neighboring towns as well. And then it took on the rather unfortunate name of yuppie flu in sort of 1984. Since then, there have been many more outbreaks, and as you see, and then in 1995, the American Center for Disease Control actually put it onto its list of re-emerging infectious diseases. And so where we are now is that we have sort of mounting evidence that it may in fact be an infection and a virus infection that may be an important trigger for the disease. And perhaps the virus may originate in the gut. And the reason for that is shown in this little box that's appeared. Yep. Sorry. Okay, so Epstein-Barr virus, herpes virus, parvovirus, enterovirus, and cytomegalovirus. So 2 of those viruses are found commonly in the GI tract, somewhere in the gut. So that's the enterovirus and Epstein-Barr virus. So again, this is sort of building to a possible link to GI gut disorders that may be part of this, and maybe a gut virus that triggers this. So is there a gut origin for ME/CFS? And this is, I think, a summary of the current evidence in support of that idea. So most ME patients suffer from some GI symptoms, the most common one being irritable bowel syndrome, IBS. There's, as I said on the previous slide, there's a high prevalence of enterovirus infections. So entera means gut, so viruses in the gut. Lots of patients have a leaky gut, so things that shouldn't get into the body from the gut are getting into the body, and they're chronically overstimulating the immune system. Increased sensitivity to food, which accompanies this leaky gut. And then from more recent studies where we've been looking at, well, what's in the gut and what are the microbes there, it's quite clear that the microbes in the gut of a patient with ME are different or distinct from those in healthy individuals. So again, there's something different about the population microbe in the gut. And we know from studies done in Australia around 2012 that actually if you can change the makeup of the microbes in the gut of a patient with ME, you can treat it effectively. So cumulatively, this sort of indicates that the gut might be a site or one of the origins of ME. So this is the third question for you, which again relates to the GI symptoms. So have you, as an ME patient, ever suffered from gut symptoms? And some examples are given there. So you have 4 options: no, never; 2, yes, before the onset; 3, after onset; or 4, before and after onset. Obviously, if you don't suffer from ME, don't answer the question. Okay. So I think we're there. So the majority of you say yes, both before and after ME symptoms, which is interesting. 38% after onset, 8% never. Okay, so that's probably more or less consistent with what we understand from all the studies done today, that the majority of ME patients will have GI symptoms of some description, and it may in some cases precede disease onset, but may accompany other symptoms. So that's very good. So now we're going more into, okay, what's in your gut and what about the microbes in your gut? So as an introduction, how many of you have heard of the term microbiome? 1 yes, 2 no. All of you. Thank you for the prompt. 53. Okay. Very good. 85% of you. Very good. So just as a sort of straw poll here, where have you heard of the term from?
In the supermarket.
Supermarket? Well, sorry? Food, okay. Anywhere else? Okay, good. Yes? Here. You've been here before, haven't you? I recognise you. You've been here before. Only if you can control. Very good. Okay, excellent. So a good spread. So the information is getting out there to most people about the microbiome. So then, do you know why the microbiome is important? Do you know why the microbiome is important for your health and well-being? So how much do you understand about the microbiome? And why is it important? Yes, no, maybe. Okay. 49. Very good. Okay, yes. So again, maybe. So the majority of you think it's important for your health. And I would agree the majority is important for our health. How exactly it's important for our health, we're still investigating, but it clearly is important. So just to give you some generalities about the microbiome, this is my one slide that summarizes the microbiome. So the microbiome describes all the microbes that live on and in your body. There are more microbes than you have cells in your body. But then when you look at the number of genes all these microbes have, they vastly outnumber our own genome by maybe as much as 150-fold. Most of the microbes on your body live in your gut. And everybody here has their own unique populations of microbes. Everybody's distinct. So it's your microbial fingerprint, okay? Just like your fingerprint in your hand. So you have a unique microbiome that's shared with nobody else. Among the microbes in your gut, viruses, you may be surprised about this, but viruses are by far the most prevalent, not bacteria. Most of what you probably know about the microbiome is about bacteria, is that true? So in fact, they're not the major group, it's the viruses. And most of these viruses infect bacteria. So the changes we see in bacterial populations may be because viruses are killing off or changing the bacteria. In terms of the bacteria, there may be as many as 1,000 species. And good news is that we all have about 50, we share about 50 species. And these are important because they perform an important function in digesting the food you eat. So that core is essential for digestion. And we know that it's important health principally through digestion, but also it interacts with the immune system and it boosts your immune system. And we also now come to think that the microbes in your gut can influence the brain, and particularly mental health, cognitive function, and they may even play a role in dementia development. And that's something we're very interested in the Quadram Institute. Okay, so viruses, bacteria, fungi, archaea, which are very ancient bacteria, and protozoa. So they make up your microbiome. And this slide just sort of illustrates, well, you have a healthy microbiome, or you can have what's called a dysbiotic microbiome, which means they're altered populations, and that is associated with ill health. So the key question is, what influences the balance? What keeps you healthy, and what may tip the balance the other way to make you ill? And so this is what we know about what influences the microbiome. And some of these things you'll think, well, that's obvious. So medications, antibiotics in particular, okay? So most people take antibiotics to remove a bad bacteria, but the collateral damage is you take out quite a lot of good bacteria, particularly if you take lots of courses of antibiotics. Infections, so food poisoning is a very good way of changing your gut microbes, and that can be a bad thing. Our microbes change as we age, so we're born sterile, and then we start to acquire microbes depending on where we live, who we live with. And then as we age, it changes as well. And by the time we're near the later years of life, again, we've lost a lot of good bacteria, and that makes us prone to lots of infections, particularly virus infections. And of course, our diet is a very good way of shifting your microbiota. But interestingly, diet only works if you stay on the diet pretty much all the time. Once you come off the diet, then your microbes can readapt and reshape, and then they can go back as they were. So diet's good, but you've got to stick with it. And we now know that most human diseases are associated with changes or shifts in your microbiome in terms of what's there and what are they doing. And ME/CFS is right at the bottom there, and we think that's also linked to this. So the key question is, well, okay, so we have an abnormal microbiome. How can we fix it? And fixing your microbiome is like lawn care, okay? So here we have a healthy lawn up here on the left, and if we take lots of antibiotics or we take the wrong type of foods, we can lose a lot of the beneficial microbes, okay? And that gives an opportunity for bad bacteria to grow more and to have a really bad effect on the body. So the options we have are, we can put down new seed, lawn seed. So that's probiotics. We can give back new bacteria. Prebiotics would be food, so putting down fertilizer or changing our diet. And then the more extreme one is digging up the lawn and putting a new lawn down. Okay. Which of these works depends on you and your type of microbes and what's actually changed in your microbes to make you ill. So one may not necessarily be the universal medication treatment for everybody. It's personalized. And we know from studies looking at the use of probiotics in ME, the evidence is that it may be beneficial, but there's no compelling evidence that it is going to work for most people. So bacteriotherapy, which is leading into our trial here, is called microbiota replacement therapy. That's the sort of now human equivalent of digging up your lawn and putting a new one down. And we do know, we have some evidence, again from the Australian group, that this can be successful in ME. And so FMT. So FMT, I've only heard about this 3-4 years ago. Actually, it's been around for a long, long time. Part of Chinese medicine back in the 4th century. And then a little later, we had something called yellow dragon soup, which was a cure-all for lots of things. And then in 1940, German troops in North Africa would eat camel poop soup as a cure for dysentery. And the medication, that the bacteria that was active in the camel poo, they now sell as a medication, and is still available, particularly in Germany. First clinical application in 1950s, an individual called Stanley Faecal started to give encapsulated poo back to his surgical patients. And then a little later, an individual called Ben Eisman used it to cure patients that were near death from a very severe form of colitis. And then this is the individual who's been now pioneering it for ME. And back in 1989, he was using it to treat patients with colitis. And then work in animals showed you can transfer obesity from in animals by taking the stool from an obese human and putting it into a mouse, and the mice become obese. So that was a direct link maybe of the microbiome to obesity. But now the thing that's underpinned a whole change in the way the NHS and clinical practice for FMT came in back in 2013 when FMT was used to treat patients with C. difficile infection. And the next speaker will probably go over this again. This has now been adopted as part of NHS practice for patients with recalcitrant C. difficile infection, and the cure rates are phenomenal. It's over 90%. And consider the cost of drugs and the cost of an FMT, significant savings for the NHS there. So in terms of the future, there are lots of other target disease we think FMT could be very useful for, including ME. And this is the evidence that it might work in ME patients. So this individual, Thomas Barodi, he's performed over 14,000 FMTs. Back in 2012, he took 60 ME patients. 52 of those had IBS. So again, the majority of them have GI problems. And his fix was to take 13 different types of microbes from a stool sample and put them into these patients by transcolonic infusion or by rectal infusion. And a large number of them responded. So 42 had improved sleep, deprivation, fatigue, and lethargy. The majority reported being symptom-free up to 15 to 20 years follow-on. So these are individual cases, okay? And the resolution of GI symptoms was even more dramatic. The vast majority of them improved their GI symptoms. So what's needed now is a clinical trial to formally determine whether or not FMT can be an effective treatment for ME. And this is the Restore Me trial, which we want to run here in the Quadram Institute later this year. So it's a phase 2B trial. It's designed to test efficacy directly. We want to know if this works, if this can improve symptoms in ME patients. And that's the question we're asking. So can FMT restore a healthy microbiome in ME patients? Because all of you with ME will have an abnormal microbiome. And does this improve your physical and mental health? That's what we're testing. This is the design. So it will be performed here. It's a single site. It's randomized, so individuals in the trial will be in one of two groups, the placebo control and those that get the test sample. We're looking to recruit 160 patients. And again, we'll have Joe, who's talking later from East Coast Community Healthcare, will talk about the recruitment aspect of this. And the procedure will be carried out here in the downstairs in the endoscopy unit. And the donors will come from a stool bank we've already established here for the treatment of C. difficile patients in the hospital. And the next speaker, Ngozi, will talk a little bit more about that. The features of the trial which make it unique are that it's the first efficacy trial of its type anywhere in the world for treating ME. And it's the first trial in which we'll have objective measures. So that's real measures, not just patients filling in questionnaires. We will actively quantitate the changes in your mental health and your physical activities. So it's unbiased and it's real numbers. So that, again, that is a distinctive feature of the trial. So this is just a snapshot. You see at the top there, we've got it's a huge team of people that will be involved in this. The ones in red are the people that will speak after me about different aspects of this. So basically, it will be prior to actually receiving the treatment, there'll be a battery of tests to establish the baseline values, then undergo the FMT, and then we'll follow on at intervals up to 6 months to assess various aspects. You know, has it improved your physical activity? Has it improved your mental health? And do you now have a healthy microbiome? And these are the outcome measures. So the primary ones will be, have there been a change in your overall physical activity? And we'll have Andy who will talk more about what that entails. Change in cognitive function, so we're looking for change in memory, executive function and cognition. And then the secondary aspects of this are related to, you know, how willing are patients to undergo the procedure, have there been any adverse effects, etc., and the safety. Those are all important parts of the trial. So this is my last slide, and this just sort of summarizes where we are currently and when we hope to start. So we are currently waiting for one of the government regulatory bodies to come in and inspect the facility that we are building down in the basement to allow us to process and use human stool. So as you see at the top there, the MHRA, which is the body that licenses drugs and regulates drug use, has deemed that so human stool is a drug, it's a medicine, so it has to be prepared and administered in exactly the same conditions. So that's ultra clean facilities, and every step of the process needs to be validated and recorded. So we're currently waiting for the MHRA to inspect our facilities. Then we can apply for the licenses and the ethical approval to undertake the study. We're hoping that if all of this comes about as shown here, then we are looking to start actually recruiting patients into the trial near the end of the summer of this year. So I think as we get close to Easter, we'll know just how realistic this timeline is. But we really expect the study to be up and running later this year. And the good news is that we think we've raised all the money as well. So we're good to go. Right, so now I will pass on to Dr. Ngozi, who will talk about the safety of FMT. So I'm sure some of you have questions.